the brilliant black boy who took on the court and left the judge speechless. Kaleb stood on the cracked sidewalk, the hum of the bustling metropolis swirling around him. Neon lights flickered above the crowded streets, but it felt like a different world down here, one filled with shadows, whispers of pain, and the constant murmur of unease. He was just a boy, 14 years old, but his mind spun with numbers and formulas like a maestro conducting a symphony. Yet, in these streets, the brilliance of his mind was often overshadowed by the weight of his skin. Today was different. An elite school offered Kaleb a scholarship, the kind of opportunity most kids dream of. His heart raced with excitement and fear. Standing on the brink of a new world, he couldn't help but feel the cruel irony of life, navigating a system that often placed him at the bottom. But as he turned the corner, his thoughts were shattered by the shrill sound of sirens slicing through the air. An announcement, curl. The word court felt heavy, pressing against his chest. He pictured the austere room, the gavel banging, people staring. Fear twisted like a knot in his stomach. "Kaleb, breathe," Professora Marisol said, her voice a comforting presence, even as her own past loomed like clouds. She had her struggles, and here she was trying to armor him against the storm. "You're brilliant, and your words matter. Remember that." As Kaleb stepped into the courtroom, the atmosphere shifted. Everything felt magnified. The wood of the benches, the hard glare of the judge, the whispers circling like vultures. Eyes followed him, judging, measuring. With trembling hands, he took position at the witness stand. The judge, a stone-faced man with piercing eyes, leaned forward, and Kaleb felt the heat of the moment engulf him. "Tell us what you saw," the judge commanded. Kaleb's mind raced. The words rushed out like water breaking from a dam, careful yet charged with emotion. Maximo wouldn't do that. His voice rang clear, cutting through the tension. The murmurs rose, a ripple of shock. Calm, Kaleb continued, piecing together the truth, his friend's alibi, the circumstances, the reason it didn't fit. Suddenly, the judge hesitated. A flicker of uncertainty crossed his face, a break in the facade that hinted at secrets swirling beneath the official story. The air crackled with expectation. Kaleb's heart raced faster. Would he be understood? Or would he be another voice drowned in a sea of suspicion? He stood at that crossroads, grappling with doubt and fear, feeling the weight of history pressing down on him. Would what he said matter? Would he dare to unravel the lies? And just as he opened his mouth to speak, the entire courtroom seemed to hold its breath. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without notice. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming up. And while you're here, hit that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, from which city are you watching this? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Kaleb's heart raced faster. The courtroom felt like it was closing in, suffocating him, waiting for him to speak the words that could change everything. He steadied himself, taking a deep breath. Maximo was with me when, but before he could finish, chaos erupted. A loud crash shattered the tense air, ringing through the courtroom like thunder. The wooden door swung open, slamming against the wall with a resounding bang. In rushed a woman, her face pale, her eyes wild with fear. "Stop the trial!" she shouted, panic spilling from. She looked as if she had just run a marathon, breathless and desperate. The courtroom fell silent, every breath holding on to the shock, every eye fixed on her. "They're lying. You don't understand." Kaleb's stomach dropped. He had thought he knew everything. He had thought Maximo was innocent. But there she was, a whirlwind of emotion, and her words rattled him to the core. "What do you mean?" the judge demanded sternly, his patience slipping. Rosa took a step forward, trembling hands raised. "Maximo is being set up. He didn't commit that crime. I know this because I saw who did it." The spectators gasped, whispers cascading around the room like waves crashing against a shore. Kaleb's mind raced. Could it really be true? Did she know something more than what he had pieced together? "You saw who did it?" the judge pressed, his voice more curious than hostile now. Rosa nodded, her eyes shining with desperation. "Yes, it was Victor." Kaleb's breath hitched. Victor? The name felt like poison on his tongue. Victor was once part of their circle, a quiet kid who had turned angry after losing his scholarship chances. He remembered their last encounter, a scuffle in the schoolyard, words exchanged in heat, and then Victor fading away into the shadows. "No!" Kaleb's voice broke through the murmur of the crowd. "No, it can't be. Victor wouldn't go that far." But the seeds of doubt were planted. Kaleb's heart pounded. He had seen Victor spiral into darkness, hanging with the wrong crowd. But to commit a crime? It felt unfathomable. Rosa spoke again, her voice steadying. "I was dropping something off at the school. I saw him with someone else, planning it out. They were hiding in the alley behind the gym." Kaleb's stomach twisted with confusion, sadness, and fear. Would this new revelation set Maximo free, or would it only complicate things further? Questions swirled in Kaleb's mind, crashing into each other like waves against a rock. The judge shifted, glancing towards the lawyers whispering frantically behind him. Kaleb could see the judge's eyes flicker, almost searching for something in Rosa's face. The air weighed heavy with tension, every person hanging on the edge of a revelation that could blow apart everything they thought they knew. "How do we know this is the truth?" A voice called from the gallery, skepticism lack. Rosa's face hardened, determination blazing within her. "Because I know Victor. I raised him. He wouldn't have gone this far if it wasn't for the pressures he faced. We need to find him." Kaleb felt his whole world tilt. Victor, the boy he thought he knew, the one who had laughed beside them. Was he really tied to this chaos? Everything he had thought about the innocence of their little bubble seemed to shatter like glass. He dared to glance back at the judge, whose expression seemed to shift, pulling him into the powerful current of uncertainty. Just as Kaleb opened his mouth to speak again, desperate to make sense of it all, the courtroom door slammed open once more. A figure stumbled in, breathless and dirty, eyes wide with fear. "I can explain." Kaleb's heart sank. Who was it now? The pieces were shifting too fast, and he was left questioning every truth he held. What did they know, and how deep did this rabbit hole go? Kaleb's heart sank. The figure stumbling in wore clothes torn and stained, yet somehow familiar. As they drew closer, a jolt of recognition shot through him. It was Victor. "What are you doing here?" Kaleb's voice cracked, disbelief flooding every word. Victor's eyes darted around the room, wild and frantic. There was a sheen of sweat on his brow and panic etched on his face. "I can explain," Victor called out, desperation in his voice. "Explain what?" Kaleb snapped, the tension in the room amping up again. "You can't just walk in here after all this." "No, listen," Victor shouted, stepping forward, raising his hands. "I didn't do it. I swear I didn't. But it's bigger than that. I was set up too." Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Mouths dropped open. Kaleb's pulse quickened. This was spiraling out of control. "How can we believe you?" he fired back, anger and confusion swirling inside him. "There's more, Kaleb. I overheard something. Some guys were talking. They want to frame me and Maximo." Victor's voice cracked with urgency. "At first, I thought it was just talk, but they're connected to something dangerous. They want to threaten anyone who gets in their way." Kaleb's mind raced as he glanced at Rosa, who stood shell-shocked. This wasn't the Victor he knew. He'd struggled, but never been violent. "Why didn't you come forward before?" Rosa yelled, the emotions spilling out. "Why now?" Victor's eyes filled with tears, a mix of fear and guilt. "I thought they were just threats, until I saw them in the alley. They were going to do something, and then they found out I knew. I panicked. I didn't know where to turn." "What were their names?" the judge asked sharply, the authority in his voice cutting through the chaos. Victor hesitated. "Gabriel and Marco, they're not who they seem. They were pretending to be part of the team, but they're connected to something dark." Kaleb's breath hitched. He remembered those names. Gabriel was the kid who always shadowed the elite group. "You expect me to believe they're involved in something like this?" Suddenly, Victor dropped his gaze. "I found something that scared me. A note, a plan. It detailed the whole setup. They wanted to disrupt the whole school, make it look like it was our fault." Shock washed over Kaleb. Everything he'd thought was unraveling. The friend who stood beside him, lost in shadows, could indeed be a victim. But he felt another wave lapping at the edges of his consciousness, a lingering doubt. Why had Victor waited? "Your Honor," a lawyer interrupted, rising swiftly. "This is all hearsay. Without hard evidence, these are just accusations." But Kaleb's mind was racing. But if there's a plan? Victor's expression darkened. "I have the note. I just need a chance to prove it." The room exploded with murmurs, distrust creeping back into the air. "Your Honor," Kaleb's voice rose, igniting a spark of resolve. "Let's at least hear him out. I know Victor. He wouldn't do this unless he was in real danger. None of us are safe if we let this go." And in that moment, the door swung open again. A police officer rushed in, breathless. "You need to see this." All eyes turned to him. Kaleb felt cold sweat trickle down his back. What more could possibly happen? The officer stepped forward, holding up a phone, a video playing on the screen. "There's evidence," he declared, "and you all need to see it." Kaleb's stomach dropped as he caught a glimpse of the screen. His heart raced. Everything was coming to a head, and he feared what that video would reveal. Would it confirm Victor's story? Was the truth more twisted than they imagined? "What is it?" Rosa asked, her voice trembling. But the officer just kept staring at the screen, eyes wide, and Kaleb knew that in just a few moments, the reality they thought they understood would be shattered even further. What secret lay waiting to be uncovered within the video? Kaleb looked at the officer, his heart pounding. The room was electric with anticipation as everyone leaned closer, eyes fixed on the small screen in the officer's trembling hand. What would it show? Would it confirm all they thought, or would it blow their minds apart? "Turn it up!" someone shouted, urgency slicing through the murmurs. The officer nodded, raising the volume. The sound filled the air, heightened voices cutting through the tension. As the video played, flickering images flashed before them. A dark alley, hooded figures stood whispering. Kaleb squinted, trying to make sense of it all. And then, out of nowhere, a voice echoed, chilling him to the bone. "We need to make it look good. No one will believe those kids." Kaleb's breath hitched. Who was that? A laugh followed, mocking, sinister. The crowd gasped, faces pale as they absorbed the weight of the moment. The camera panned, capturing shadows moving, frantic gestures in the dark. And then, in a sudden, unexpected turn, a face appeared in clear view. It was a familiar face, one that sent a jolt of disbelief through Kaleb's entire body. "No, it can't be." A lump formed in his throat, choking his words. It was Cristian, their physics teacher. Kaleb had always admired him, the way he made numbers dance in the air. But now, seeing him in that video, he felt like the ground had crumbled beneath his feet. Cristian was walking beside Victor, whispering, pointing toward the school. "You know, if they get caught, it'll ruin everything. We have to act fast." The words echoed in the courtroom, wrapping around Kaleb like a cold shroud. Cristian had been part of this? No! Kaleb's voice broke, trembling with disbelief. The room erupted in whispers, confusion morphing into outrage. He glanced at Rosa, whose face twisted with shock, eyes wide. "Your Honor," a lawyer shouted, heart racing. "This is absurd. He's a respected teacher." "Respected?" Kaleb shot back, voice filled with anger. "He was part of this." "Are you sure?" Another voice piped up, disbelief rippling through the gallery. "This is outrageous. You can't just—" But Kaleb was on fire. "I don't care if he was respected. I saw him. He's tangled in all of this." The judge slammed his gavel, commanding silence, and Kaleb could feel the weight of judgment hanging in the air. But it didn't matter. The truth was laid bare. Cristian was linked to the chaos, swirling danger like a storm cloud. As the video continued, Cristian leaned closer to Victor, his voice low and menacing. "This isn't just about you, Victor. We can take them down. We can control everything if you just follow my lead." Kaleb's heart thundered. Lead? What did Cristian mean? Fear gripped him like a vice. Had they all been pawns in a game played by someone they trusted? And just as the video reached its precipice, everything flickered. The screen froze, and the officer cursed under his breath, tapping the device. The room held its breath, electricity in the air. "I can explain," Victor screamed, almost breaking down. "I didn't know, I swear." "But you were involved," Kaleb shot back, shaking. "You don't understand. Cristian!" Suddenly, the lights flickered, and a figure burst into the room. It was Marco, one of the names Victor mentioned. Fear and determination danced in his eyes. "Stop this," he shouted, his voice booming. "You don't know what you're dealing with." Chaos erupted. Kaleb's heart raced. Faces turned, whispers grew louder. Who was Marco? What was he hiding? Kaleb felt the floor shifting beneath him, relationships crumbling like sandcastles against the tide. Everything he thought he knew twisted and warped into a dark labyrinth of betrayal. The room was a storm of confusion, shouting, and fear. And in that moment, Kaleb realized this was far from over. The truth was like a puzzle missing pieces, and he was standing at the edge of a deeper truth than he'd ever imagined. What did Cristian really want? Who else was entangled in this web? Questions swirled in his mind, like leaves caught in a whirlwind. Would they ever get to the bottom of it? In a world filled with shadows, where was the light? Kaleb felt the chaos swirling around him like a cyclone. Marco's loud voice echoed, but it felt like no one was really listening. The shock of the video still hung thick in the air. Tension crackled. Faces were pale and confused. Kaleb's heart raced. Victor stood trembling, desperation in his eyes. But Kaleb felt no pity. "You came when it was too late," he said, struggling to keep his voice steady. "How can we trust you now?" But before Victor could answer, the courtroom door burst open again. A tall figure strode in, commanding attention. The room froze, stares all focused on the newcomer. Kaleb squinted, trying to register who it was. Then he felt his heart drop. It was Cristian, their physics teacher, who had been their guiding light, gliding like a hawk through the shadows now. "What are you doing here?" Kaleb's voice cracked. Rosa yelled, hands trembling at her side. Her voice echoed through silence, raw and real. Cristian stepped forward, eyes scanning everyone before settling on Kaleb. "You're all caught in a game you don't understand, but I can show you the truth." Kaleb's breath caught in his throat, as the world around him seemed to rip at the seams. "The truth? What truth?" he spat, anger mixing with disbelief. Cristian smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Every one of you thinks you're innocent, that you can fight the system. But the truth is darker, deeper than you know." Kaleb clenched his fists, ready to shout back, but Cristian continued, his voice steady, almost hypnotic. Victor was right about one thing. You're all pawns. You think this is just about Maximo or a crime? No, it's about control. The courtroom felt stifling, reality slipping away. Caleb's head spun. Control? By who? Cristian laughed softly, the sound chilling them all. By those who decide what paths you take. He pointed a finger, not at any one person, but at the entire room. And it's time you understand you're all tied to something larger than yourselves. Kaleb opened his mouth to protest, but Cristian stepped closer. I'm not your enemy. I'm your guide. You need to see what they don't want you to find. He gestured at the screens showing operational images of the school, revealing hidden interactions among the teachers and the potential culprits lurking within. What do you mean? Kaleb whispered, a lump forming in his throat. Those boys, Gabriel and Marco, they're not just athletes. They have ties to groups that want to manipulate the future. Cristian's voice fell to a whisper, heavy with implications. And they've turned Maximo into a scapegoat. Every head in the courtroom turned, eyes wide and mouths agape. The air thickened with tension. Caleb's stomach twisted, a sickening mix of fear and revelation. Cristian moved closer, leaning in, and Kaleb had the urge to step back. You need proof? Then follow me. The judge finally spoke, his voice slicing through the silence, filled with authority. This court will not tolerate interruptions. You've turned this into a circus. But Cristian was undeterred. It's a circus, yes, but one orchestrated by you. What do you mean? Victor shouted, confusion knotting his brows. What are you talking about? Cristian's eyes burned with intensity. Because I've seen the strings being pulled. People playing their parts while you stand clueless. The real crime here isn't just Maximo's framing. It's how deep the corruption runs. A gasp rippled through the crowd, and Rosa clutched her heart. Kaleb felt a surge of emotions: anger, fear, betrayal. Then Cristian reached into his pocket and pulled out a flash drive, holding it aloft like a trophy. This contains everything, every piece of proof you need. But know this, accepting it comes with risks. What risks? Kaleb asked, throat dry. Cristian stepped back, a knowing smile crossing his lips. The risk of uncovering the real you. The truth will reveal more than you ever wanted to see, about each other and about yourselves. Are you ready for that? Kaleb felt a wave of dread wash over him. The faces around him shifted, morphing into expressions of doubt and fear. What would they discover? Who could they trust now? As the weight of Cristian's words sank in, the door swung open once more. A figure rushed in, breathing heavily. Before anyone could react, a woman stepped forward, eyes wild with panic. Wait, you don't know the whole story. Kaleb's heart pounded. What else could possibly unravel? Who was she? The mystery deepened, and as more questions circled the room, Kaleb felt like he was losing his grip on everything he thought was true. What was the real game? And who were the players? The urgency was palpable, and the truth felt just out of reach. Kaleb felt the room tense as the woman stepped forward, eyes wide with panic. You don't understand. It's not just about Maximo or Victor. It's about something much bigger. The urgency in her voice drew every eye to her, a silence so thick it felt suffocating. Who are you? Kaleb demanded, adrenaline surging through him. He searched her face for answers, but found only desperation. She took a shaky breath. I'm Marta, Maximo's aunt. I've been trying to keep him safe, but I didn't know it was going to come to this. Her voice quivered, each word heavy with an urgency that felt almost palpable. What do you mean safe? Rosa asked, her brow furrowed in confusion. Safe from what? From Cristian, Marta exclaimed, her eyes darting around the room as if she feared someone was watching. He's not who you think he is. He's been feeding information to the people behind this whole plot. Gasps filled the courtroom. filling the silence like a fresh burst of wind. Caleb's chest tightened, each breath becoming shallow. Cristian, the teacher he respected, who guided them through equations, was a puppet master in a dark game? "Stop, just stop," Kaleb shouted. "You can't mean that. He's been our ally. An ally who's been using you all to protect himself." Marta shot back, her voice intense. "He wants to keep you close, to keep the truth buried." Kaleb felt the room spin, trust shattered within him. But before he could scream back in anger, the courtroom door burst open again, and in rushed Detective Ramirez. "Everyone, we need to evacuate, now." His face was pale, urgency lacing his every word. "What? Why?" Kaleb cried, panic blooming inside him. Ramirez locked eyes with Cristian, a dark shadow hanging between them. "They found the evidence. The gang is coming for all of you." Fear washed over the room like a flood. The door slammed behind the detective, and a chill wrapped around Kaleb's spine. He felt an invisible threat looming, closing in faster than he could comprehend. "What do we do?" Rosa's voice trembled, fear radiating from her. "Move," Ramirez barked, "out the back." "They're already here." As everyone scrambled, Kaleb turned to Cristian, his heart thundering in his chest. "You?" But Cristian smiled, a knowing smile that sliced through Kaleb's mind. "You've been too trusting, Kaleb. You may find that trust can turn on you." The crowd surged toward the exit, but Kaleb hesitated, suddenly caught between confusion and dread. A part of him felt the pull of anger, wanting to confront Cristian for everything he thought he stood for, but instinct screamed at him to run. Then, just as Kaleb turned to follow the crowd, the lights flickered and went out. Darkness swallowed them. Panic erupted. Voices screamed, footsteps pounded. Chaos reigned around him. "Get out!" someone shouted behind him. But Kaleb felt trapped in the void. A shift in the atmosphere sent a chill through him, and he sensed something, no, someone, looming in the dark. Everything went silent. The kind of silence that felt wrong, like the pause before a storm. And then, a flash of light. A gunshot rang out. Kaleb's heart stopped. He spun around, adrenaline pumping like fire through his veins, searching for the source. He could barely breathe. The world collapsed into a single horrific moment. "Victor!" he shouted as the echo of the shot reverberated through the hall. In that flash of light, he saw Cristian lurch back, clutching his shoulder. Blood soaked into his shirt, painting the fabric dark crimson. Gasps erupted like firecrackers. What just happened? Rosa cried, wide-eyed. No one could comprehend the chaos unfolding. Marta, still rooted to the spot, whispered, "He was one of them." And in that instant, Kaleb's world tilted once more. Everything he thought he knew shattered like ice under a blazing sun. Was Cristian really a pawn, or had he been playing them all along? Kaleb felt the weight of betrayal and fear wash over him, drowning him. Time seemed to freeze, the air thick with confusion. Who shot Cristian? Why? With breaths quickening and hearts pounding around him, Kaleb realized they were standing on the precipice of a dark abyss. And as panic surged back once more, every face blurred in his vision. Could they trust anyone? Would they ever know the truth? The world spun, and Kaleb felt he was falling into darkness. Kaleb felt the room tense as the woman stepped forward, eyes wide with panic. "You don't understand. It's not just about Maximo or Victor. It's about something much bigger." The urgency in her voice drew every eye to her, a silence forming that felt suffocating. "Who are you?" Kaleb demanded, adrenaline surging through him. He searched her face for answers, but found only desperation. She took a shaky breath. "I'm Marta, Maximo's aunt. I've been trying to keep him safe, but I didn't know it was going to come to this." Her voice quivered, each word heavy with an urgency that felt almost palpable. "What do you mean safe?" Rosa asked, her brow furrowed in confusion. "Safe from what?" "From Cristian," Marta exclaimed, her eyes darting around the room as if she feared someone was watching. "He's not who you think he is. He's been feeding information to the people behind this whole plot." Gasps filled the courtroom, breaking the silence like a new wave crashing onto the shore. Kaleb's chest tightened. The man he had trusted, the guiding light through the darkness, could he really be the puppet master in this twisted game? "Stop. Just stop," Kaleb shouted. "You can't mean that. Cristian he's been our ally." "An ally who's been using you all to protect himself," Marta shot back, her voice intense. "He wants to keep you close to protect his interests. The real danger comes from him." Kaleb felt the room spin, doubt clawing at him. Just then, the courtroom door burst open. Detective Ramirez rushed in, paled and frantic. "Everyone, we need to evacuate. Now." "What? Why?" Kaleb cried, panic flooding his veins. "It's serious. They found the evidence. The gang is coming for all of you." Fear washed over the room like a tidal wave. "What do we do?" Rosa's voice trembled in the chaos. "Move, out the back. They're already here," Ramirez barked. Everyone surged toward the exit, but Kaleb hesitated, caught between disbelief and dread. Cristian's eyes glimmered with something that made Kaleb's skin crawl. Before he could scream back, darkness suddenly enveloped the room, the lights flickering before failing completely. The world went silent, the sound of panic swallowed by the void. Then came a crack, a gunshot. Kaleb's heart stopped. His instincts screamed at him to run, but he was rooted in place. In that flash of light, he caught a glimpse of Cristian lurching backward, clutching his shoulder, blood spilling like crimson ink onto his white shirt. "Victor!" Kaleb shouted as the fears piled on top of each other. Chaos erupted amid the crisis. The courtroom burst into whispers, disbelief coloring every face. A frenzied energy suffocated the air. "Cristian!" Rosa cried, hands trembling. "What happened?" "No!" Kaleb felt his world shifting once more. "No, it can't be!" And then, above all the chaos, another figure emerged from the back. A tall, imposing man appearing out of the shadows where they were least expected. He stepped forward, his body language brimming with authority. "Enough!" Kaleb squinted. It was Gabriel, the athlete from their school. But he looked different now, eyes cold and determined. "Everyone, listen to me. Cristian has been playing both sides. He's in setting Maximo up." Gasps erupted anew, everyone stunned. Kaleb's mind raced. It was like the earth had shifted beneath him, and now nothing felt stable. "What do you mean?" "Cristian sent Victor on missions to find dirt on you all. He's connected to the gang that wants to control this school. He tried to eliminate Maximo as a pawn." Gabriel's voice was steady and strong, cutting through the panic. Kaleb felt the blood drain from his face. Everything he thought was true bent, twisted into a confusing knot of deceit. Victor's face contorted with shock. "You're lying. Cristian's been helping us." But Gabriel's eyes flared with anger. "He's been lying, just like the rest of us." The room was electric with anxiety. Kaleb looked from one face to another, searching for answers, but finding only confusion. Who could they trust now? "Get out! We need to leave!" Ramirez shouted again, snapping everyone back to the moment. But Kaleb stood frozen, caught in disbelief, watching as Cristian tried to stand, blood oozing down his arm. "You can't trust him!" he shouted through gritted teeth. Suddenly, Marta stepped forward, a fire igniting in her gaze. "You're all caught in a trap, and the person pulling the strings is someone you never even suspected." Kaleb's breath caught in his throat. Who could it be? What did she mean? "Who?" he asked, urgency rising in his voice. Before Marta could answer, the light suddenly flickered back on, illuminating the chaos spinning around them. And there, behind them, nestled in the dark corner of the room, was Cristian's face, the whisper of a smile curling at the corners of his mouth, even in pain. "I didn't want this to happen," he murmured, voice barely above a whisper, eyes glinting like glass. All the confusion, all the lies. And somehow, that smile made it worse. Kaleb's heart raced, the ground shifting below him, as he recognized the betrayal that crushed him like a wave. Everything he thought was real was cracking into pieces. And just before the floodgates of chaos opened completely, Marta turned, facing everyone with hard determination. "You've all been fighting the wrong battle. The true enemy is much closer than you think." Again, the world spun, and Kaleb felt fear grip him tight. What was true? Who was the real enemy? Just as he opened his mouth to question, a loud crash echoed from the door, and an unknown figure came barreling through, ready to change everything again. And Kaleb was left hanging on the edge of a truth that was more elusive than the shadows lurking in the dark. Kaleb felt the air thicken with tension as the figure rushed into the courtroom. In the dim light, it was hard to make out the details. The crowd stilled, every heartbeat echoing in the silence. Was this person friend or foe? As the figure stepped into the light, Kaleb's breath hitched. It was Cristian, their beloved physics teacher. But it wasn't the same Cristian they all remembered. This man's face was twisted in an expression of raw urgency, not the serene, composed teacher they all trusted. "Everybody, get out, now!" Cristian's voice boomed, slicing through the thick tension. "They're coming, and they're not playing around." Fear crackled in his eyes, igniting a spark of panic among. It felt surreal, like being trapped in a nightmare they couldn't wake up from. Marta gasped, disbelief spilling from her lips. "You can't be serious, Cristian. After everything, you're just going to leave us?" "Enough," he yelled, cutting her off sharply. "You have to trust me. They won't just frame you, they're here to finish what they started." Kaleb's heart raced. This wasn't making sense. Could Cristian really be trusted? Hadn't Marta just accused him of being behind everything? His mind spun with confusion. He could feel his stomach clenching, dread pooling at the base of his gut. Without waiting for a response, Cristian dashed toward the back exit, urgency propelling his every move. Kaleb, unable to process the whirlwind of emotions, hesitated. The camera in the corner of the room clicked on, capturing every moment. Witnessing everything felt like an out-of-body experience. The other students and teachers started to follow Cristian's lead. But he turned back, locking eyes with Kaleb. "You're not safe here. Trust me. If you want to know the truth, you have to come with me." Kaleb's heart thudded violently against his chest. Could he really trust Cristian? But then he remembered the blood, the twists and turns in the night. I can't." And that's when it happened. A loud crash sounded from the front door, splitting the air as loud shouts followed it. "They're coming." Panic erupted. The room shook with chaos as various voices shouted. Fear gripped everyone like a cold hand around their throats. Kaleb felt paralyzed, trapped in a terrible game he didn't understand. Suddenly, from the broken door, a familiar face emerged. It was Victor, but this time he was bloodied, gasping for breath, a wild look in his eyes. "I got the note. Cristian set us up." Kaleb's heart dropped. Everything was twisting, turning, sliding through his fingers like grains of sand. "What? What are you talking about?" "Cristian isn't our friend. He's been manipulating us from the start," Victor cried, voice hoarse and frantic. "You have to believe me. I have proof." Before Kaleb could process this revelation, a gunshot rang out, echoing around the room. Cristian fell back, blood pooling from his shoulder, staining the tile red. Kaleb's heart screamed in terror, adrenaline flooding him. The collective gasp that swept through the courtroom felt like a wave crashing over them, drowning them in shock. Kaleb's vision blurred as he tried to grasp what had just happened, the room spinning. "No, no, no." Rosa rushed toward Cristian, who gripped his wound with a pained expression. "I can't let you take him." As if in slow motion, a figure emerged from the shadows, Gabriel the athlete. He stepped forward, eyes cold with determination. "You fools! You think you know the game? It's not about sides anymore. It's about survival. Confusion twisted through Kaleb's chest. What was Gabriel saying? But the room was spiraling out of control. Everything felt dangerously unstable. Marta screamed as a wave of black-clad figures burst through the door, filling the courtroom with a terrifying presence. Kaleb felt the air leave his lungs. The chaos was too much, and he realized he was at the center of a battle far bigger than himself. "Run!" Cristian shouted, but Kaleb could barely process the command. The realization crashed over him. Betrayal, danger, and the truth were tangled in a web of lies, and he was caught at its center. As everything descended into madness, Kaleb caught Cristian's eyes one last time. The teacher, once a beacon of hope, now looked like a ghost, pain etched on his face. Kaleb felt his whole world crumbling, the weight of betrayal heavy on his heart. Just before everything went dark, a voice rang out. "This ends now." It echoed through the chaos, sending a shiver down Kaleb's spine. And in that moment, as he darted for freedom, he wondered, what was ... Kaleb felt the chaos spiral around him, adrenaline surging as he processed the shocking turn of events. Cristian's face, once a symbol of safety, now held a sinister secret. He looked at Victor, whose face was panicked. He wanted to scream, but held it back. This was too real. The gunshot rang in his ears, a haunting echo demanding answers. The air itself felt electrified, whispers of disbelief dancing through the crowd. Out of the corner of his eye, Kaleb caught sight of Marta. She looked around, her expression shifting from fear to something deeper, something darker. "We need to go, Kaleb, now." Her voice pulled him from the storm of confusion swirling in his mind. Just as he made a move to follow her, another shove from behind sent him crashing into a nearby wall. The wood splintered against his back, pain jolting through him like lightning. He pushed himself up, breathless. He saw Gabriel advancing, stepping into the light, anger radiating off him like heat from a fire. "Enough! This is all part of the plan," Gabriel shouted, his voice hoarse but commanding. A hush fell over the room. "You've been losing sight of what really matters." Kaleb squinted, his heart racing. "What do you mean?" "You've trusted the wrong people. Cristian isn't the only one. They've been playing us from the very start." As Gabriel spoke, Kaleb felt a sick twist in his stomach. His hands shook as visions of betrayal flashed in his mind. Suddenly, the room exploded in a flurry of motion. Officers burst through the doors, guns drawn. Shouts demanding control snapped the tension like a fragile thread. Everyone pushed toward the back exit, hearts pounding. A blinding light flooded the room and a figure stepped through, silhouetted against the brightness. Kaleb's breath caught. It was a person he thought long gone. Isabel, his childhood friend who had moved across the country years ago, stood there, fear etched across her familiar features. "Kaleb, I came to warn you." Her eyes darted around the room, and the chaos fell silent for a heartbeat. "Isabel." His heart soared and plummeted as he tried to comprehend her presence. "What are you doing here?" "You're in danger, all of you," she said urgently. "I found something. It's bigger than just Maximo. It's about the whole school and more." "What?" Kaleb felt dizzy. What could be more than all this? She stepped further into the light, revealing a flash drive in her hand. "I found this in Cristian's office. It contains everything. Plans, lists, even names of people involved." The room erupted again. "You're lying," someone shouted, but Kaleb's mind raced. Could she be telling the truth? "Isabel, you don't understand," Gabriel said, stepping forward. Eyes stormy. "Cristian is the reason we're all trapped. We can't trust any of this." But Kaleb felt a different kind of urgency, one that urged him to listen. Then fire blazed in Isabel's eyes. "You're wrong. Cristian is not who you think he is." "But," she took a shaky breath, "neither am I." Kaleb's blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" Suddenly, the air shimmered with a heavy tension. Fear tightened around them like a vice. I'm not just here by accident. I've been working with them." Before she could finish, the lights flickered again, plunging them into darkness. Kaleb felt a panic swell in his chest. A scream cut through the heavy silence, echoing sharply, and he spun back toward the source, but was met only with shadows. "Isabel!" he shouted, and just then a deafening boom reverberated through the space, the sound of shattering glass. The room erupted into chaos once more, a new layer of terror layered atop the previous one. Screams pierced the air as panic boiled over. Kaleb was swept away by the surge of bodies moving toward the exit, confusion and terror merging into a chaotic dance. He caught sight of Cristian, bleeding and moving awkwardly. "Everyone get out!" Cristian shouted, but his desperation felt hollow now. As Kaleb stumbled back toward the doorway, wresting free of the panic, he met Victor's eyes. "We need to find the truth." But whatever that truth was didn't matter now. Darkness spiraled in around him, questions prickling at the edges of his mind. Just when he thought he might escape, a hand gripped his arm tightly, forcing him back. "Where do you think you're going?" Isabel snarled, her voice low and menacing. "You need to understand what's at stake." Kaleb's breath hitched as he met her gaze, the light from the flickering bulbs revealing something utterly different, a familiar darkness. "What are you?" he breathed, heart racing, dread pooling in his gut. "Everything you thought you knew is about to change," she hissed, her grip tightening. "And I can't let you leave until you see the full picture." In that moment, Kaleb felt his world slip beneath him again. The girl he knew, the friend he had cherished, was lost to him. No one was who they seemed. With each heartbeat, the truth closed in, more suffocating than ever. And all he could think was that nothing would ever be the same again. Kaleb's heart raced as Isabel's grip tightened, her eyes sharp and glimmering, not with fear, but with something colder. He glanced around, seeing the panic flooding the courtroom. People were shouting, desperate to escape. The air hummed with urgency, weaving around them like a taut wire ready to snap. "Let go of me, Isabel," Kaleb pleaded, desperation gripping his voice. "This isn't you." But her expression was resolute, steel masking any traces of the childhood friend he once knew. "You need to understand, Kaleb. It's now or never. We can't let them win." Just then, a scream pierced through the chaos, and the crowd surged. Kaleb felt the rush of bodies, people scrambling for the exits. He tried to break free from Isabel's grip, panic rising as the shadows loomed closer. "What do you know?" he shouted, fighting against her hold. "I know that Cristian has sold us out," Isabel yelled back, determination cutting through the madness. "I know he's been watching, waiting. He'll betray us to save himself." Kaleb's heart sank into the pit of his stomach. A wave of betrayal washed over him. "You can't mean that. He's been our teacher." But just then, Cristian staggered to his feet, his face pale and bloodied. "Kaleb, get out while you can!" The desperation in Cristian's voice struck Kaleb like a bolt of lightning. Was he fighting for them, or just buying time for himself? The thin line between ally and adversary blurred, and Kaleb felt his world slipping. Gabriel approached Victor, who stood frozen, tears in his eyes. "You don't understand. We have to work together. No more games. We're all in danger." His voice trembled with urgency. That very moment, Detective Ramirez re-entered, urgency fueling his every movement. "Kaleb, we need to move now." In that instant, the room erupted into movement. The air grew thick, voices clashing like swords. Kaleb pushed against Isabel, the adrenaline pumping through his veins. "I can't let you do this." Suddenly, the ground shook with an explosion of chaos. The door burst open, revealing a police squad, weapons drawn. "Stay where you are," an officer shouted, their voices rising above the chaos. "Kaleb, run," Victor shouted, a final plea. His expression twisted with fear and realization. The room trembled with voices of confusion, rising and falling like a storm. Kaleb felt trapped, caught in a web of lies and uncertainty. He glanced back at Isabel, whose eyes bore into him, and saw the desperation mirrored in her expression. "What's it going to be?" she asked, her voice softer now, a flicker of the girl he once knew shining through. Kaleb took a deep breath, the choice weighing heavily on him. "Together," he whispered, "but we have to figure out what's really happening." As they turned to face Cristian, the officer stepped powerful, ready to confront the shadows hanging over them all. "Where's the evidence? Who's responsible?" Cristian, bleeding but unyielding, pointed toward the exit. "There's a bigger game at play. I'll lead you out, but you'll have to trust me." Kaleb hesitated, trapped between fear and hope. He made one last glance at Victor and Marta. "We can't just leave Maximo. Maximo is already safe." Cristian called, urgency pushing his words. "I promise you, but you need to listen to me." Every word crammed Kaleb's mind as confusion and fear rippled through the crowd. Who could he trust? The shadows deepened as they rushed to the exit. "Follow me," Cristian said, leading them into the unknown. With each step, the past and future collided in a cacophony of sound. The danger pursued them, but the only truth folding in the night was their desperate need to survive as friends, as a family. As they raced through the halls, Kaleb's heart hammered against his ribcage. They pushed through, a wave of determination flowing through him. This was it. This was the chance to uncover the real truth. But just as they neared freedom, the lights flickered again, plunging them into darkness once more. A booming voice echoed through the void. "You think you can escape?" Kaleb felt his heart drop. Who was it now? And just as that voice rang out, everything around them seemed to halt, frozen in an endless moment of uncertainty. Was the fight truly over? Or had they just stepped into a deeper darkness, further entangled in the web surrounding them? As fear swirled inside him, one thing was clear. They hadn't seen the last of this nightmare. You have to subscribe now. Don't miss a second of the upcoming exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to give a boost to the algorithm. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories. Every thought matters. And remember to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know this ending. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait another second.